It's a video that's been making the rounds on social media. Vancouver police arresting a man with his young son watching, clearly in distress.
I'm a fucking car now! Help! God! Help! Leave me alone! Hey, my son! What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? I'm gonna try. Sorry? What are you doing to me? I have my son in the car! I have my son in the car! Help! 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 What are you doing to me? I have my son in the car!
Oh my God!
I was doing nothing!
What are you doing to him, buddy?
On your stomach! On your stomach! I was doing nothing! On your stomach!
Get off him!
With my son! Ow!
Look what you're doing to the kid, guys!
Doing this is abuse! I was just sitting in my car with my son! What are you doing? Oh, son, I'm so sorry! This is so wrong! This is absolutely wrong! My name,
You guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
I've done nothing wrong! I've done nothing wrong! I have done nothing wrong! This is abuse! This is abuse! I'm sitting in the car reading with my son! What are you doing? Charlie, I am so sorry, son! Charlie, I'm so sorry, I've done nothing! I have done nothing! I picked him up from daycare! What are you doing?
I don't want your cuff sneaking head on you.
I'm a fucking car now!
All right, I just wanted to explain a little bit of what went on in this Vancouver video of the Vancouver police running into a parking lot and grabbing a young dad, and throwing him onto the ground as his child was absolutely terrorized as the police strutted around and left the child crying and probably traumatized for the rest of the child's life. And then the Vancouver spokesman who comes on and downplays the situation, fills it full of rhetoric, fills it full of untruths as he tries to minimize the situation. Now, what happened here is the Vancouver police treated this dad like a criminal on behalf of what's called the family law cartel. I want to explain exactly who the family law cartel is and why it is such a powerful organization. The family law cartel is run by politicians, powerful judges, and powerful policymakers at the most highest level of the Canadian government. These people can't be voted out. They're embedded. It's called the permanent government. You vote Trudeau out, and these people will always still be in there. These are the most powerful men in Canada. They are the most corrupt. They are basically the most psychopathic people that have risen to the top in Canada, and they run a organization called the Family Law Cartel. It's actually called the Family Law System, the judicial system, whatever you want to call it. But the policymakers, the federal government, make policy, and they make laws, and they appoint all the judges to the Supreme Courts of Canada that rule on family law matters. Now, this is called civil law. Civil law is an interesting part of law in that it's kind of a rogue kangaroo court system. Criminal law, you can buy your way out of trouble. Civil law, in family law, you basically, the judges, the highly corrupt judges, will make criminals out of all dads. All dads automatically, when you go to family law court, you are deemed a criminal for being a male. And the reason for this is money. Most people don't understand that there's criminal law, there's business law, and there's tort law, and that falls under civil law. But family law also falls under civil law. A lot of criminals that go to court are actually a drain on the system in that they don't have very much money, and they have to be appointed lawyers. And that's why they're doing trivial crimes because they need money, they want money, but they're not smart, most of them. And you know, the smart ones do what's called blue collar crime. They're not the blue collar, but the white collar crimes, right? Basically, you know, what Trudeau did with the Wee scandal, how they fed themselves $250,000 for Trudeau's mom through a not-for-profit called the Wee. And those are complex, sophisticated crimes. But you can never put those kind of people in jail. They're above the law. Again, Trudeau can't go to jail, and his mom can't go to jail, and the people that run like the We organizations and these high level organizations, they cannot go to jail, so they're protected. Getting back onto what family law generates for the cartel, so the high end lawyers, the high end judges, which are connected to the federal government of Canada. Family law generates money. Criminal law does not generate very much money for the elite, but family law generates billions upon billions of dollars every year in taxes and $300 and $400 an hour lawyers. And this basically holds the economy up. So when when people get together and they get married, they start saving instantly. They found their partner. They're no longer hopefully partying, going to the bars. They're thinking about having children. They're settling down. They're saving money for their university and college degrees for their children. They're saving up for cars. They're putting equity into their homes. They're on a new path in life. And now the federal government knows that 50% of all people or more will get divorced. And this is where the scheme really comes into play. When a dad gets divorced, just like me, you are deemed a criminal. They start pasting rules onto you where you have to go to court to fight to see your children. They facilitate, encourage, and reward lies in court, because remember, this isn't criminal. This is a highly secretive family law is highly secretive. There's no recordings that you can get. If they know that you're in family court, just watch in court to see how it goes down, you will be kicked out. It's not like criminal court where it's open to the public. This is a highly corrupt, highly orchestrated scheme where they extort all the money from the parents by arbitrarily making them into criminals. And you can see here, this dad in the video, young dad, I imagine, I heard he has no criminal record, had no criminal record prior to getting divorced, but the mom was encouraged, and the lawyers actually highly encourage it, and I've watched it in court, and I've watched it, watched a duty counsel person encourage a mom to lie in front of a judge. And the judges willingly and eagerly accept the lies, and then they write these orders based on nothing. Mine said that to a judge that she was really scared. She didn't have to explain what that meant. She didn't even have to say she was scared of me, and the judge put an order on me. And so there's an order on this dad, and that keeps him away from his child. And so what the cartel wants this dad to do, and the cartel, what I mean by that is the lawyers, the judges, and the top bureaucrats within the federal government that run the family law organization, they want him, no matter how he has to do it, is to get tens upon tens of thousands of dollars and go to court and fight. And by fight, that means give the cartel money, give the court system money to see his own child. And as he goes through this system, he'll be attacked from every angle. The judges, I've done many videos on it. I encourage people to record judges in court to see, most of them are pretty subtle, and they're very, very crafty. But they do make the rulings, and they do give punitive fines and load it in their own pockets. And there's a lot of human rights, abuses, atrocities that take place in family court, these kangaroo courts. So what's happened here is a family law judge has put some orders on this fella. For whatever reason, he's not allowed to see his own child. Some people say it's an agenda. Now, I don't believe that so much. I believe that the top people in government are more power hungry, but I do know from watching powerful people, the Me Too movement and such, that once powerful psychopaths, and I forget the name of that guy that started the Me Too movement, the Hollywood fella that raped all those women and is doing like 10 life sentences in jail. Once powerful people have all the money and have all the power, the only thing left for them is sex. And I mean, that is pretty much, how our society works, right? It's almost good to stay a little hungry because, who knows, once you have everything and what's left, right? Evilness and psychopathicness, right? And ultimate power over children, whether it be male children or female children. So that's getting a little off topic, but not so much. Essentially, from an economic standpoint, and again, I'll put in there that that's all circumstantial. I mean, how do you join the dots that powerful people want to separate dads from little kids so they can take advantage of them? Yeah, Canada has a massive, massive child porn industry, the biggest in the world. We have child sex tourism in Canada. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. I worked in an industry where I actually kind of saw some of that, and it was pretty gross. I didn't see the actual sex part, but I'll talk about I did witness a rape, and I did go to the Vancouver police, and they did not do anything. So that's why this, it makes me sick to my stomach when I see the Vancouver police beat up a dad because he's got these flimsy orders on him, and he's just trying to be a dad. Just trying to be a dad to his kid. And the Vancouver police has signed up to be part of the family law cartel. And I think by law, they shouldn't even be enforcing these what's called civil orders in family court. They should only be enforcing criminal orders. And I can tell you that I really, really doubt this Vancouver spokesperson is being truthful when he said there was a criminal order on this dad, because if there was, then he would be able to name the dad. So what happens in civil court, in family court, not civil court, but just say family court, which is a sort of an offshoot of civil court, is everything's top secret, names are buried, and that's why, it's such a moneymaker, lucrative kangaroo court for the highly corrupt judges and lawyers, and the federal government that runs it with policy and laws. If this dad was actually in the criminal realm, then the Vancouver police would have had no problem naming him and saying his name. They would have said Mr. Smith or whatever his name was, or Mr. Magoo, just picking out names here. But I really think that he was just, these orders came through what's called the family court system, which it literally hands out thousands and thousands of these flimsy orders every single day. Judges literally laugh and think it's a big joke. And I had an order on me just based on, she came to court and said, "Oh, I'm scared." Judge didn't even say, "Oh, what are you afraid of?" And as I make this video, you have to know I am in my 50s now, and I have absolutely no criminal record whatsoever. I was given one flimsy order in court, and fortunately I record everything, and I proved to a judge that it was impossible because I had the recording. And and he had to backtrack on that order, which, they don't really like you recording them because of just the sheer kangaroo gongery that takes place in family court. So I know these orders are handed out arbitrarily, and they're just handed out to what basically create more court time, because then these dads will have to go to court to fight these made up orders. But essentially, what we have in Canada is we have just ultimate, corruption, psychopaths running our system. And this is a perfect example. This is a dad who was dragged out of a vehicle, thrown to the ground as his child was crying. And then we have the Vancouver police trying to tell us they didn't know the child was in the car, even though you can hear in the video, the first thing the dad says is, "My child is in the car," hoping, he knows that there's going to be some trouble. He just wants to talk to his kid for a second. He's not a criminal. But he is in the eyes of the family law cartel. They made him a criminal. So that's what this video is about. This video is about just how brutal Canada is. Now you might say, well, why do I care? Maybe it's kind of good that we beat dads up, that we steal all their money, and we put it back into the economy, which is going to basically keep our economy going, since Canada doesn't really produce much. Everything's made in China. Oil and gas comes over from overseas for the most part. What does Canada have except the major lie that Canada is a good place with, good people? Even though we see this video, we know this goes on every single day in Canada. There's dads right now, as I'm speaking, that their doors are being kicked in, the cops are coming in, and they're getting the beat down as their child is dragged away, screaming, crying, and traumatized. And that's what Canada wants to sell itself as, a good place, when it's not. It's a very, very rotten, highly corrupt, highly sophisticated place. So you say, okay, well, it's kind of good though. A few dads, few 100,000 dads, every year are, treated like criminals, and all their money's taken and it's pumped into the economy. What's wrong with that? So what's wrong with that? I studied Indian residential schools. I was born in a town. We had lots of First Nations. Almost 50% of my town was First Nations. I watched just the horrors of how one side of the town lived very comfortably, the other side of the town, literally, like those people living in shacks, like little boxes, 10 by 10 boxes in minus 20, minus 30 degree weather, getting frostbite, losing fingers, dying, malnutrition, alcoholism, all kinds of social issues, violence, and for the most part, though, very, very gentle people. Way gentler than the white people I know, but that's a whole other story. So we did that to the Indians. We know when we take away parents, when we take away children from parents, we take away parents from children. Essentially, when we fracture the family, we start to create dysfunction. And that's what this video is about. This is the Vancouver police creating dysfunction, terrorizing this child, terrorizing this dad, on behalf of a very complex family law cartel, the elite in Canada that run it. What happens? Well, we already see it. I mean, I went through the family law system. It cost me $100,000. It cost me my children. I haven't seen my children for over 3 years. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I had no criminal record. I was very passive. I was a good fighter, but I never actually, ever started a fight in my life. I was always the neutralizer. I don't know, the neutralizer. I mean, at work, I was the guy that people talked to when they had problems. I really am that person. Yet the Vancouver police treated me like a criminal, just like they did this dad. I wasn't thrown on the ground, but I was treated like a criminal. My children were kept from me. The Vancouver police stepped in and did that to me. It created huge financial burden on me. I mean, I was homeless for a while, and that's what I want to talk about. What is this doing to our country? So, been involved in family law for over a decade now. I studied it. I've read so many books on it. I mean, I've went to in front of judges, trying to impress with all the case law I know about, and it's a kangaroo court. They don't care. They just cut you off. They're rude. They're just absolute barbaric, power hungry monsters that answer to nobody, and I mean nobody, because I've put in complaints about judges and essentially just throw them in the garbage. So again, what's happening? Who's causing all this homelessness, child poverty, drug addiction, drug overdoses, alcoholism, anger in our country? Was at the Freedom Rally. I mean, who were those people all willing to take time off work and go to Ottawa and not be heard, right? Much like the federal government of Canada raped, beat, and fractured the Indian families, they're now doing it to everybody. They're doing it for the same reason too: money, power, and they're psychopaths, right? War is peace, right? I don't know if you ever heard that term, but the federal government, the elite, have gone to war with the people of Canada. Basically, Canada has a cancer growing inside of it, and the elite and these cops who eagerly join in, whether they are intentional, right? But they're psychopaths. That kid was crying. That cop did nothing. 3 cops to take down that skinny dad who wasn't even fighting back. He didn't even raise his arms up in the video. 3 cops to take him down, knee him in the back, and not one of them looked over at that kid, right? That kid could have fell out of that car and smashed his face, and those cops weren't even paying attention. You have this police spokesperson that is absolutely full of shit, trying to downplay the situation. You can hear at one point he tries to insert what's called rhetoric. So what you try to do, and you do this in family court too, is you pull up keywords. My ex used to say she was extremely scared, right? The adverb, extremely in front of everything, right? The judge wouldn't say, "Oh, what are you afraid of?" I mean, the guy has no criminal record. He's got no criminal history. He's got no history of violence. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. Oh no, I'm just scared. Okay, we're going to give you an order. And then you can use that order to entrap. You can use that order to keep him from the children. And that's what the family law cartel love. And that is what the Vancouver police many years ago signed up to do, is get involved in civil law where they're not supposed to be, family law where they're not supposed to be involved, and they're spending their resources taking down parents and keeping parents from their own children, good parents from their own children. And then when they want to talk to their child for a second before they know they're going to get hauled off, Vancouver police will now use that and put a criminal charge of resistance, right? Who's gonna check? Because this guy, you can see he didn't resist, but most people are not lucky enough to catch the brutality of the Vancouver police that work on behalf of the family law cartel on video. I have, and it saved me. I'm surprised that I don't dare go to Vancouver anymore. Vancouver is one of the most corrupt places in the world. The Vancouver police are, and I've dealt with a lot of police, and I have police that are I consider myself friends with. I've worked with the police on criminal matters. Actually, I got to go testify pretty soon on a criminal matter involving someone, so I'll be testifying against them on an actual real criminal matter, not a family matter. and I gladly work with the police. But Vancouver has the most corrupt police force in probably the world. Um, I haven't explored the whole world, but I've explored many different jurisdictions, and that would be, everything from Abbotsford Police to different RCMP detachments throughout British Columbia, and Vancouver is by far the most corrupt. But that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, I don't know everything about them, but I have read of a lot on the Vancouver police, including the Willie Picton story and how the Vancouver police downplayed the murders of, again, indigenous, mostly indigenous women that were being murdered by Willie. And the Vancouver police thought that was pretty funny. And, basically they agreed that, Willie was doing a good job in doing some cultural cleanup, yeah, sick fuckers. But what we have here is a video of a dad being taken down and brutalized by the Vancouver police. And it creates corruption. It creates dysfunction. You got to wonder what that child is going to think of the police now that he watched this happen to his dad, right? So the family law industry has a choice now. Can they just let this go, or do they have to now work extra hard to paint this dad as a criminal, box him in the corner, maybe drive him to suicide? They're going to have to work hard, because now they're going to have another citizen who just does not trust the police, and then thinks that police are absolute brutes and basically corrupt. And, one by one, the Vancouver police do this to people and create enemies. I wouldn't walk across the street to save a Vancouver cop. They're absolutely fucking. I just swore, and good point. So in the video by Global, there they cut out a part, and that's when the Vancouver police officer walked up to the car and said, "Get the fuck out of the car," right? And so the cop looks in the car, sees the child, and then starts swearing, right? Good role models. So there's the Vancouver police are good role models. So in this video, you can see, they couldn't care less about the kid crying his eyes out on the street there. They didn't do anything. They want to make sure they really give the beats to this dad and show him that they're the boss. And as the kid is crying, and they're swearing in front of this child. And then the leader of the Vancouver police comes on and essentially lies his face off, throws in a bunch of rhetoric, tries to paint the dad as some horrific monster. Lots of energy going towards this dad by the Vancouver police. I want to talk about something really interesting. Many years ago, I witnessed a child rape. I was horrified. I actually puked my guts out after I discovered this rape going on, and it was a brutal rape. This wasn't just like touching or anything. This was actually like penetration, forced penetration. This was a sick, brutal rape of a child, and I went to the police. I got no help, so I had a conversation with somebody that was in the immediate area. They were there with me, about the rape. And I knew this raping had been going on for some time, because there was things like locks put on the child's door. This was a nice Vancouver Catholic family, and they pressured the kid, not to go to the police. The family spent a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, insulating the rapist, essentially to protect the name and reputation of their family. But I went to the Vancouver police with the evidence I had, and I had a recording of the mom. Essentially, she poo-poos the rape, and she downplays the rape and says that, well, child rape happens every day, so let's not make a big deal of this. Let's just forget about it. You probably saw something you didn't see, it was late, and she made all kinds of excuses. Now, this mom knew that there was a good chance I was recording her. I was a wildlife photographer at the time, and I had some pretty fancy equipment. This was before, the little digital recorders were so accessible on Amazon. I had wireless mics, but she knew that I was on that, by this time I had already left her. I was, just disgusted with her. She was just a full on psychopath too, right? But I can't say anything bad about her because in family law, you're not allowed to say anything bad about your ex. So she had mental illness. This was not her fault. She was just lovely. Anyways, I left her. Never got to see my kids much after that. She fought me in court to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I went to the Vancouver police with, this recording of the mom downplaying the rape. So it was pretty strong. I had the someone who transcribed it, an actual legal transcriber from audio onto paper. She actually chased me out into the hallway and said, "This is the most grossest thing I've ever seen." I mean, just the context of it and just the tone of it. This mom was bad news, and this was a rape that was covered up, and nobody can deny that from, just the tone. The mom totally knew that this rape of this poor child had been going on for years and years by the family member, and their only answer to that was put a lock on the kid's door, right? But the Vancouver police told me that because the young scared child, never came forward on his own, because it's sure the hell his parents or nobody in the family was going to take him to the police station, that they weren't going to investigate, right? They weren't going to investigate me telling them that I had witnessed this guy, who I knew him well. I witnessed him raping a child, and the Vancouver police. I had gone all the way to the. I went to the Burnaby, or not the Burnaby, the detachment just on on Boundary Road there, just the other side of Boundary Road. I went to that detachment. They wasted a bunch of my time. They told me to come back, and then they made me go all the way down to just overtop the bridge in Vancouver there. I can't remember the name of the road. The main detachment, not the one down in the East End, but the other detachment there. And I went there and I had a meeting with some police, and it was a very young police officer, I think and another one kind of standing on the side. And I told him the whole story about this rape. And I told him who the rapist was, that the rapist had actually a lot of interaction with the police throughout British Columbia and had run a East Indian man over in South Vancouver and dragged his body a block till the East Indian man was nearly disintegrated underneath his vehicle. And this rapist fella had bragged to me that he was high on cocaine that night, and that's why he didn't notice that this guy was trapped underneath his vehicle, that he hit him in a crosswalk and dragged him to his death. And the Vancouver police did not charge him with vehicular murder, right? Pretty sick. That's how fucked up these Vancouver police are. I don't know if it's because this Catholic family had made some phone calls, paid people off. I'm not sure how that all went down. I do know, and I've seen court records, that there was a civil claim regarding that in court, and I have not been able to get the outcome of that. But essentially, the rapist sidestepped that, and then he did hit another person on Marine Drive. He bragged to me, and she was crossing the road. I think she was sort of a homeless person or whatever. And there was a big dent in the front of his truck one day. And he bragged that he'd just give her brain damage and kill her, right? Killed the first one. And so the Vancouver police knew that this guy had a long criminal record also for violence. He had very violent tendencies, but he had raped a child. And I had gone to the Vancouver police with this powerful audio, and the Vancouver police did not even lift a finger, not even a finger, to investigate my claims. And I swear to God, I'll take a lie detector. I saw a rape, a brutal rape of a child, and the Vancouver police did not do anything. I am pretty sure that they got a phone call to downplay it. But anyways, yeah, so, I don't know how much more damage this rapist did because he never did go to jail. I don't believe he spent a little bit in time in jail for another matter. I think it was a matter of some violence, but yeah. So back to this video, we have a dad who just wants to know his own son. He just wants to be a dad. He's young. He's not perfect, but he's just a dad. He's going through a divorce. And here's the Vancouver police drive up, swear at him so his kid can hear the swearing, and then throw him to the ground when he wants to say goodbye to his kid and terrorize the child. They're kneeling on his back. They're holding him down. One dude, no weapon, never even lifted his arms. All these cops got guns. They're all fat fuckers. And they're kneeling on him. I just had a guy on Facebook tell me a cop just broke his rib recently. I think it was in Ontario, though, with a family law matter. They took him down, threw him to the ground, smashed his face all up. He just showed me pictures and stuff. And this is what our police do on behalf of the family law cartel, is that poor kid was jumping up and down and screaming for his dad. And be sure that I am telling you right now that, and I don't even care anymore, that Canada is imploding. Canada has cancer, social cancer, because of greed, because of the family law cartel and the monsters that run Canada. And, you can say, well, maybe get rid of these 4 cops and get rid of this Vancouver spokesperson who's, a lying piece of what. There'll be more, because this all comes from the federal level. This all comes from what's called the permanent government. These are the people, the scary, dark policymakers in the back room who figure money is more important than people. As homelessness grows, it's massive. Wow, my dad lives out in Maple Ridge. And, the last time I went to visit him, it was like colonies of homelessness everywhere, even through the valley. Or I live up in the interior now. I want nothing. I can't be near Vancouver because the cops would, literally, they would frame me in a heartbeat, right? The Vancouver police, not so much the RCMP, but the Vancouver police. The homelessness, all through the Hope area, there's little encampments, shanty towns. I was out in the Sunshine Coast last year, and there was homelessness all over the place over there. I have friends on the island that tell me the homelessness is massive. I see the pictures of downtown Vancouver. It's social cancer. All this homelessness, as the rich get richer, as the family cartel members, the lawyers, the judges, the politicians give themselves raises. And, raises are one thing, but they cause all these social problems, terrorizing families, ripping families apart in the name of profit and power and control. And, yeah, it's horrible. And then you have, why are people doing drugs? Because they're depressed, they're sad, they have no family to lean on, and they turn to drugs and they turn to alcoholism. And youth violence is going up, and I so predict youth violence is going to go through the roof. And again, this is based on what I saw with the indigenous, with the town that was half Indians that I lived with, and I read, the Truth and Reconciliation book that was in my library. It was a massive text where a whole bunch of white people made a shitload of money writing that book. And if you read that whole book through it, I couldn't get through it all. It's just too much gibberish, filler, because not one person went to jail, because the federal government implemented the residential school program and the SCOOP program of the 60s, where they scooped up children and intentionally 100% attacked the family, and it caused years and years and years, and it'll be another generation that the Indians will be fighting an uphill battle as their social structure was torn apart to shreds, right? And that's, that's the first thing that terrorists do. When they go into countries, they rip up the books, they rip up the culture, they rip up the families, they take families apart. That's what Hitler did, right? You got to separate all the people. You put the men in one camp and the women in another camp and the children in another camp. Well, that's what Canada does. They separate families. They tear families apart. Hitler did it for power, did it for money, you know, Justin Trudeau, and whoever else allows this to go on, this Vancouver spokesperson, these Vancouver police, they are ripping apart families and they know it. It's hard to say, if those fat cops are, that bright that they actually know what they're doing, but they're doing it. And they're part of the cog in the wheel, and it is sick. And, what do I do? Put a complaint to the police complaints commissioner and have him, pee on the piece of paper and throw it in the garbage, and then they all go out for a drink. I put in complaints about police officers before, and essentially they just tell you to go fuck off is what they do, right? In legal speak, there's no accountability in Canada. I don't believe this video will make any difference. I just want people to be aware of what they were watching when the Vancouver police took down this young dad. His kid was crying and screaming. I just want people to understand what was happening. This was not a shoplifter. This was not a, brutal man. This was not even a rapist, right? This was just a dad who wanted to spend some time with his kid and was being kept from his kid by the family law cartel as they hoped to extort money out of him. And along came the Vancouver police, which has a strong connection to the family law cartel, highly corrupt, not those simpleton cops that you saw, seeing who could break this guy's ribs. But the upper management of the Vancouver police, the top dogs, right? The ones that go to the same parties as the judges, right? I had a kid from Kamloops who was doing this little protest, contacted me on Facebook and told me, he was a boy, and he told me that he used to sex traffic, and his pimp used to pimp him out, and some of the people that he got pimped out to were powerful people, including a judge that he knew was a judge. And for whatever reason, I think one of his friends went in front of that judge at one time, and he recognized that guy was someone he got pimped out to. And he was doing this protest, which of course the news media never touched it. I didn't even want to touch it, right? I mean, I wanted to stay away from it. I've already made enough waves in Canada exposing essentially the most powerful people in government. Most of these people, you will not even ever get to know who they are. I mean, I can name judges who were involved in my case, like Judge Branch, who refused to let me take my son to a doctor, a dentist, or counseling. Sick dude. Judge Muir, who said I agreed to joint guardianship and that I agreed to give my ex-partner full custody. Not true. I was extorted. I had already spent about $50,000, couldn't spend any more money, and I was being kept from my kid. I thought if I agreed to give my ex-partner custody and just agree on and settle on joint guardianship, that I'd get to see my children. Didn't work out that way. I can name all these judges, but you got to remember, psychopaths rise to the top, and Canada seems to have a system that does really, really well with psychopaths. I mean, it's not for me to diagnose this cop, this spokesperson. All I can say is he's very disingenuous. He would have taken the law. He would know that he is brutally enforcing civil family law when he should be out enforcing criminal law. such as child rape. But where does he put his energy? He puts his energy where the politicians tell him to put his energy, where the money people tell him to put his energy. His main goal, ripping families apart. And I think I probably, and I've talked to other people that have been through the family court system, and I think we all suffer post-traumatic stress disorder to some degree. And when I saw this video on social media, my heart raced. I lost sleep last night just knowing the trauma that dad and his child are going through. And you can rest assured that is just a snippet, just an absolute tiny snippet of the financial and physical and emotional horror awaiting this dad as he winds his way through the system as they just terrorize him. And yeah, I just really do wish him all the best, and I wish his kid the best.